Hello Chain Gang, and welcome back to the 4 Chains Travel. Last week on our videos we talked about the mistakes that you can make when booking a cruise. Today we are going to be talking about mistakes not to make when you are on the cruise, and next week our video will talk about mistakes to avoid when getting on and off the cruise for embarkation and debarkation process on port days.
And on port days, yeah.
Yeah.
We really want to do, after these 3 videos about mistakes, a viewer video on the flip side. So if you're a veteran cruiser and you've got some tips or hacks about how to really elevate your cruise to make it even better, please put those in the comments, because we want to do a video just with viewer tips that can really add to it, because we want a positive vibe. But the truth is that avoiding mistakes has really been the thing that has been the most helpful, so we do have to talk about them.
Yes, they really can make or break your trip. So as much as we want to stay focused on the positive, it is important to avoid these mistakes to make sure you have a great trip.
Okay, what's mistake number 1?
Mistake number 1 is purchasing Wi-Fi, drinks, or dining packages on the ship.
Yeah, I would strongly consider not buying any of these packages at all, but if you're going to buy them ahead of time. Hopefully, as we talked about on last week's video, using a deal that you heard about on the cruise line's website or in their newsletter.
Or Facebook pages.
Yes, absolutely. We talked in earlier videos about certain cruise lines that have increased the prices for Wi-Fi and drinks and the packages just beyond comprehension.
Yeah.
So, but I know some people can't love the specialty dining. Some people can't live without the Wi-Fi. I'm not saying don't get them under any circumstances, but be aware of what you are getting, starting with Wi-Fi. Mm-hmm. It's not just that you are paying more in all likelihood for 1 day of Wi-Fi than you pay for a month at your house, but the Wi-Fi is really unreliable.
It's very spotty.
And when you're on a cruise, you will notice the thing people might complain about the most is people who paid for Wi-Fi and can't get reception. That's very frustrating. Mm-hmm. If you want to, avoid that frustration, maybe consider doing without Wi-Fi. For repositioning cruises, keep in mind there's some passages where you go, 5, 6, 7 days at sea where there's just no Wi-Fi and you will not get a refund. So, for us, we're the kind of people who you would think would get Wi-Fi no matter what. We respond to every question that people put on the YouTube channel. We try to respond immediately. We put out videos every Friday at 8:45 a.m. Eastern time. But when we go on a cruise, we don't get the Wi-Fi because we just don't want to deal with that stuff. We are filming content on the Wi-Fi, but we're just not upload
on the ship.
Yeah, we're not uploading on the ship. Sometimes we'll schedule videos to come out while we're on board before we leave, but this is kind of like even though our job is kind of going on vacations and filming it, this is sort of like a semi-vacation from that job. One of the funny quirks about cruises is that in the past, when cruisers were polled and asked things like, what are the best unexpected benefits of cruising? The number 1 answer always used to be disconnecting. You're disconnecting from work and social media, and they don't even realize what a pleasure that is and how much of a mental break that is. But now Wi-Fi is improved on ships. Now you're paying a premium for that improvement, but it definitely has improved. You don't see people brag about as much because a lot of people are getting the Wi-Fi, but you still have that option of enjoying being disconnected. Yes. Now, drink packages. It's not just a math issue. Now, you should do the math. Think about how many drinks you're going to have a day. You can easily find online what the prices of individual drinks. On the Queen Victoria that we're going on, they charge $18 for their premium drinks. So, yeah, and you got to add in the mandatory tip that's going to be with that. So do the math, but it's not just about doing the math that makes it worth it. For instance, you have to consider what kind of cruise it is. So the Celebrity Ascent that we're going on is a repositioning cruise. It's a 14-day cruise. Only 4 of those are port days. So there's a lot more time on the ship taking advantage of the drink package. But also when we take the Queen Victoria, it's a 7-day cruise. 5 of those days are port days. So when you're ashore, they're not going to give you your drinks for free because you bought the drink package. It's a completely different different issue. So people who want to get their money's worth are going to have a problem with that. And I want to say something else about getting your money's worth. It's just the reality, it causes people to overindulge. When you realize you have to drink 11 drinks a day to
get your money's worth.
Yeah, get your money's worth, feel like you got a deal, you're pressured to drink that amount, and maybe you're pressured to drink even more, and that can be a problem. And that brings us, I can see, to the number 2 mistake.
Yeah. Number 2 mistake is not sticking to your alcohol limits.
Yes. So, is it rare for serious health issues to happen to people because of alcohol on cruise ships? No, it's not rare.
Unfortunately, not.
I'm not even talking about drinking more than you're used to and puking. Like, we're not really financially capable of drinking amount to make us puke on a cruise, but we're just not rich, and we have kind of Irish levels of tolerance, I suppose. But I'm talking about like people who have so much booze they have heart attacks, or they fall down and injure themselves, or they fall overboard. Passengers falling overboard happens way more often than you think. I can't believe.
Every time I hear about this, I can't believe.
And we hear about it all the time, right?
Yeah.
And almost always it is alcohol involved. I'm going to show another clip of a guy who died but did not fall overboard. This guy, by all accounts, did not behave like this in his real life. He just got the drink package, got overserved. He tried to find his room. He went to the wrong deck of the cruise ship to find his room, and the door wouldn't open. He thought somebody was in his room when of course it was their room. He's banging on the door. Security had to restrain him. He winds up having a heart attack and passing away. That is just an absolute tragedy. Yeah, I mean, I'm going to try to put the stats up of the average amount of people that fall per year on cruise ships, but it's not as rare as you think. And in fact, we were on a cruise ship where 2 people disappeared, presumably overboard.
Yeah, but wasn't that the one Dexter Morgan was on?
Oh yeah, Dexter Morgan was on that cruise. All right, well, so I can't guarantee that one was alcohol related, but most of them are. It's become so prevalent that in 2025, one of the changes is cruise ships have started limiting the amount of drinks on an unlimited drink package. So you might be on a cruise where you get the unlimited drink package and you need to have 11 alcohol drinks or 12 to get your money's worth, but in fact 15 is the total maximum that you can drink and be served. And that seems really unfair, but I'm sure that's a lesson learned and is probably a good idea, as unfair as it sounds.
Yeah. Okay, mistake number 3 is not reading all of the written material you're given on the ship. This includes embarkation items, the daily newsletter, and disembarkation items. You definitely want to be very thorough in your reading of all of that.
Yeah, you certainly don't want a stressful situation because there was something you were supposed to do when boarding the ship or something you were supposed to do when leaving the ship. I mean, that seems obvious. Please read that. Now, the daily newsletter, it won't really necessarily cause stressful situations, but it might be just as important, because when you're having meals or drinks with fellow passengers, they usually say, oh yeah, we did this yesterday or we did this today and it was really great. And you think, oh, I would have loved to do that, and you didn't even know about it.
Right.
Just make it part of your routine, either right before you go to bed or when you wake up, to read the agenda for the next day. There's so many things to do on the cruise ship. You don't want to miss out on something just because you didn't know that it was happening.
Right. Right.
Okay, what else?
Mistake number 4 is thinking that the casinos on cruise ships is like the casinos in Atlantic City or Las Vegas. In those cities, the casinos are far more regulated than what you're going to find on a cruise ship. Yeah,
there's essentially no regulations on cruise ships. You will notice there are more machines than table games. On slot machines in Vegas and Atlantic City, there is a minimum payout that these machines have to pay out, and regulators come by all the time to test those machines. That is not the case on cruise ships. So whereas you might have a situation where the casino has an 8% edge on a specific slot machine in Vegas, on a cruise ship, they may have a 30% edge. And that's why you will see less table games. But even on the table games, don't assume, oh yeah, I played roulette or craps or blackjack in Vegas and I won money, that you've got the same shot at winning a money in the cruise ships, because they can do little subtle rule changes, like how much they pay you on a blackjack, whether you can get only one card when doubling down or splitting. There's lots of little rules that they can all add up to increase their edge. We're not saying don't play. If you want to play in a casino, just budget yourself, but don't go like you're going to Vegas hoping to win money. If you happen to be one of the rare people that win money on a cruise ship, that's great, but just don't count on it, because the odds are different. Just be aware. The mistake is not being aware, all right?
Okay, mistake number 5 is shopping on the boat. You're going to have an opportunity to purchase things like perfume, makeup, bags, artwork.
Oh, don't get artwork.
Don't shop on the boat.
Yeah, let me give you a little detail about the artwork. It's not just overpriced. Even if they give you free shipping to your house, it is deceptively overpriced. Here is a common tactic you'll see. They will sell limited prints. You might see a picture of Batman or the Joker or Tom Brady or something that you're a fan of, and it will say a limited edition, and you will think that there's some value like that, like in a Topps baseball card where there's only 25 autographed Shohei Ohtanis or something like that. Well, they will do a print of an original artwork. They will put a limited run of 25, and each one will be individually numbered, because they will change something to it. Don't get fooled. As soon as those 25 are sold, they're going to put 25 more of the same print. They'll just make a slightly different addition or alteration to the print, but it's essentially the same thing. These are not investments. The gift shop, the sundry shop, the clothing stores, every single thing you could possibly buy on a cruise ship is going to be more expensive than you would pay really anywhere else in the world. Now,
even when you get off the ports and you're in a touristy area, it's still going to probably be cheaper there to buy sunblock than it is on the ship.
Absolutely. Now, you will see on the port ships, you might be like, well, geez, there's a lot of people in these shops, and that might lead you to believe that they're making good decisions. They're not. There's something psychologically appealing to buying something on a cruise ship, but just don't do it. It might say 50% off. Don't get fooled by that. 50% off. It was 50% off when they first started selling it, so 50% off is actually full price. You'll see luggage for sale on cruise ships. That should be a red flag. Why would it sell luggage? Every single person that's on there has luggage. They used it to bring their stuff on. It's because of passengers that are buying trinkets and stuff on port. I would love to know say in the comments the percentage of things that you have purchased on a cruise ship that you either regretted or did not regret saying. So yeah, just don't. These souvenirs, no, particularly if it means you have to pay your porter to take your bag. We'll talk about that later.
No.
Okay,
mistake number 6 is overpacking. We recommend packing as light as possible and carrying your bags at all times.
Yeah, there's a lot of reasons for this. The first is just space.
Possible.
The cruise cabins are not very big, and the more luggage you have, the more free space you have. The second is mobility. You're not just on the cruise, but as we're going to discuss next week about getting on and off, you have to travel to the cruise ship. You have to get there in the morning. When you leave, you have to get off the cruise ship and you have to travel to where you are next. All of that becomes more a pain in the butt if you have more bags. Now, you might say, oh, well, I know there's porter service available on these ships. Yeah, there is, but the downside to that is that you have to wait for your bags a lot of the time. I don't like that, particularly if you're waiting for your room to be open and you want to be, laying out at the pool or something like that. But also, we'll talk about next week global entry, but if you have global entry and you're going to be able to get off the ship way faster than everybody else, it's not going to matter if a porter has your bags and you have to wait for them, right? So,
yep.
Okay.
Number 7, I think that my husband put number 7 in this list because he wants to insert a photo of a friend of ours from high school in Seinfeld, double dipping.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So we went to T.C. Williams High School, which is, if you saw the movie Revenge of the Titans, and it was a great acting school back then. And one of them, Kieran Mulroney, is the guy who caught George Costanza double dipping on Seinfeld. I don't know if I'm going to have the rights of that, but Kieran, we love you.
Don't get us banned. But at any rate, number 7 is not getting double dipped on tips.
Yes. So almost all cruise ships charge you for tips at the end of the bill, right? At the end of your trip, and it comes on your bill. Now, I'm a great tipper. If you've seen our census video, we got some flack for over tipping, but that was a situation where there's only 39 rooms in the resort. We were going to be there for 10 days. We had the same people waiting on them. We gave them huge tips up front. We could tell by their reaction they were not used to getting it, but they were our friends, and we never had to ask for second entrees. They just treat us incredible, giving us 18-year-old scotch, even though we weren't on any premium. You know, they were just great to us. But in general, if you're delivering a pizza to my house or you're waiting on my table, that's a good thing. But if I'm required to tip, my personal policy is I'm not going to add anything. If I don't have the option of tipping less for bad service, out of principle, I am not going to be tipping more. You can, flame me in the comments if you disagree, but it's just sort of something that I feel. I know a lot of people feel that way, but what most often we hear about double dipping tips on cruise ships is they were double dipping and they were unaware. They get a receipt, right. Okay? There's a line for tip. So they assume since there's a line for tip that the tip isn't included. They include a tip, and then when they're leaving the ship and it's way too late, they realize that tip is in addition to the 18 or 20% that they are required to tip. Right. Our viewers, Jamie and Amy, just got off a Celebrity Ascent that we can't wait to get on. And they were saying that on day 1, there were guests that were going to the concierge line and requesting that automatic tips be removed from their bill because they want to tip individually. I almost promise you that they spent more on tips because of that. They just like the idea of tipping for specific service. We've never done that. If you've ever done that, please put it in the comments. I want to hear what kind of response that you get. But I don't want to speak on the validity of that because we haven't tried that personally. I don't think we have, right? Okay, well, you can comment on that. We'll move on.
Okay, mistake number 8 is not bringing enough cash in small bills. And I know in particular in Mexico, at least at the resorts, I'm not sure about cruises, but $2 bills are kind of a special treat and highly valued.
We like bringing $2 bills for tips. Now, this may seem weird because we just talked about we don't want to double tip. Yes, if tipping is automatic, that's fine. But the reason is that you should bring more cash is there's more reasons for that. Yeah, small bills. It doesn't take up much space, but if you find yourself needing cash, you do not want to use an ATM on a cruise ship. I don't know why nobody talks about this. The fees are huge. Now, if you have a Charles Schwab cash card where all your fees are reimbursed, that's kind of different. But it is common to have a 6% fee on cash withdrawals on ATMs on cruise ships because you don't have another option if you need cash, and they know it. There is another ship that has a 2% fee, but they charge $5 for every $100. And that is clearly just another hidden 5%. So, and it's $5, $100 or less. So in other words, I hope I'm explaining this right. If you withdraw $120, you get charged $5 for the first 100 and then $5 for that 20 because it's considered the second 100, right? So that's $10 plus 2%. So that's a $12 fee to withdraw $120. That's 10%, and that is just crazy. So yeah, your tips might be included on the ship, but when you're at the ports, you're going to want to tip on port days. And that's something you want. You also don't want to be in a situation where you are wanting to take a service, a cab or a tour or something like that, at a port and the person claims to not have proper change, or they give you in the currency, you give them dollars and they give you pesos in exchange and you get killed on the exchange. You want to be able to give them exact change, and to have small bills, that's a great way of not being, that's a good way of not being ripped off. Now, medication, you should not buy medication on board. We're certainly going to talk about that. But some cruise lines, if the weather is bad, will provide you with free Dramamine, even though crews are included. If a crew member goes and gets Angie some Dramamine, they're not going to get a tip for that at checkout. So I do want a tip in that particular situation because they're going above and beyond. Cunard has a card room. A lot of times there's some cash playing cards like that. By the way, for those of you who watch my World Series of Poker video, I don't like to play poker for money against amateur players unless those amateurs are fully aware of who I am and it's kind of a price they pay for the disadvantage in skill level in exchange for kind of socializing, and I help them out with coaching when we play. But if you remember the last tournament we played against amateurs in Mexico, I won it. Angie came in second, but we didn't even take our prize. We donated our prize to other passengers. So.
And also, I almost won it.
She almost won it. I did well at the end there. So let's bring small bills. If you don't need them, you don't need them.
Okay, number 9. Mistake number 9 is very obvious, but don't get sunburned. You're not going to ever hear anybody say, "Oh my God, my vacation got ruined because of all this sunblock." Don't get sunburned.
Yeah, just because you risk not getting the perfect tan. If you see these people, and you will, if you're taking a cruise during warm weather, any weather where it's warm enough for you to lay out in a bathing suit by the pool, there will be people that will get burnt, and it's just absolutely going to ruin.
Keep in mind, the ship is in the middle of a huge reflective ocean, so you're really at risk of that. Make sure you have sunblock.
Yep.
Okay, mistake number 10 is not making peace with any port changes. This is something that can happen, and it can be beyond your control. You just need to be able to make peace with that if it should happen to you.
We are passenger advocates. We do not have any relationship with any cruise lines, but to be fair, cruise lines do not like changing itineraries. It costs them time, costs them fuel, costs them money. It makes their customers angry. They really only do it when safety is involved. As upset as you are about a port change, I can tell you from experience, you will be much more upset if a cruise line decides not to make any changes and instead hope that the bad weather is not that bad, because that's the worst cruise scenario. In last week's video, we talked about being aware of potential weather issues when booking your cruise. But now that you are on the ship, you have to understand a certain percentage of the time, ports have to be skipped or changed, and that is reality. Recently, there was a lot of publicity about a cruise that had engine problems, causing the most attractive port on the cruise, which was in this case Greenland, to be eliminated. Passengers were near riot level. They were offered a discount on their next cruise, but they wanted their next cruise to be free. I understand their feelings, but the cruise line is under no obligation to offer that. Full disclosure, our very first cruise, we did get it reimbursed. You remember that one?
Yes, I do. We're not going to tell that story at this time.
Yes, we're not going to tell that.
It was very frustrating.
I got very angry. We got refunds for us. We got refunds for our friends. But I was lucky I didn't end up behind bars in that one, which is why Angie doesn't want me to tell it. And we don't want it because we don't want you to think, oh, he got away with it. Maybe I will. You won't. Don't roll that. Okay, mistake number 11. Number
11 is avoid getting sick. Don't get sick on the ship. You can be proactive in avoiding this, and you definitely want to do that so you don't have your trip ruined.
Yes, Angie and I both have passed the SurfSafe Food Handlers course. Until recently, I was actually a safe food service proctor and instructor, and I can tell you this with confidence. For most people, a cruise ship will be by far the most dangerous place they will ever be in terms of foodborne illness.
That is true.
I know this for a couple reasons. One of them is just the statistics. The Queen Mary 2 is considered a high-end ship. It goes between Southampton and New York, and it is a regular commuter. It only takes that route that I know of. It goes all the time, maybe 20 times a year. They had consecutive cruises with more than 100 foodborne illnesses. They're required to report it. The thing you have to understand is cruise ships do not have to take the precautions that restaurants in the United States are required to take. The standards they're required to keep just do not, in United States restaurants, do not exist on cruise ships. You will not see one of those health inspection stickers, at least not from an independent entity, on any cruise ship. They are self-governed, and that should be scary. If you want me to do an entire video on cruise safety, food safety, I can do it. But let me give you the two most important pieces of advice I have to stay healthy. Number one, wash your hands constantly. The other passengers are not washing their hands, and they are touching the same surfaces you are, the same railings you are.
And we're talking 30 seconds under the water with soap, using that
singing happy birthday twice,
and wiping with a paper towel, because that further physically gets the germs off your hands.
Yes. Number two, be aware of the food temperature. The two main ways that foods get contaminated in a way that will make you sick are cross-contamination, meaning somebody preparing or handling the food, like prepares raw chicken or raw fish, and then they don't disinfect and clean before they handle a different item. There's not a lot you can do about that. What you can do about is keeping food out of the danger zone. Be aware, if the temperature of the food you're eating doesn't seem right, move on, especially in a buffet where you're most likely to find foods that are not at the right temperature. You can just choose something else. Don't be lazy about that. You need to be aware. You won't have a thermometer with you, but be aware of what the danger zone is. The danger zone is between 41 and 135 degrees. Cold food needs to be kept below 41. Hot food needs to be kept above 135. And certain proteins need to be cooked to 155 or 160 and then kept at above 135, in some cases 140. So if you're eating something that has an unusual odor or it doesn't seem the correct temperature, just get rid of it. It can be tossed, and you can just grab a safer alternative.
And this is also something that you can apply this when you're staying at an all-inclusive resort. You're always going to have buffets in those situations. Buffets are the really big place for this to happen. So whether it's a cruise ship or a resort or something buffet that's not even at a resort, or if you're at home, just be very careful about food temperature. I would say we've been to Cancun, Mexico 20 times.
Only once did we get
never
sick.
gotten sick except one time.
Yeah.
And I
do not go to Ocean Coral and Turquesa because a lot of people got sick there.
I knew I was making a mistake. The food temperature didn't seem right. It was meat that wasn't hot enough. And I should have stopped there, and I finished the meal, and I paid the price. That's the only time I've ever gotten sick. They always say, don't even brush your teeth with the water and stuff. No problems with that. But food temperature, be really careful about it.
Yeah, so we make these videos so you don't have to. We make mistakes so you don't have to. So next week will be our last in the series, but please do your comments. What are the good things you do? Not the mistakes, the great moves you make to make your cruise better, because our next thing is going to be a viewer suggestion tips and hacks video. But before that, we have our final number 3 on mistakes. It'll be getting on and off. Embarkation day, disembarkation day, and port days. We're going to talk about that next week. And so,
if you liked this video, please subscribe and like it. And thanks for watching. And we'll see you next time on the 4 Chains Travel.